Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to your Tuesday here in the jewel cities of the Arklatex, Shreveport, and Bossier City. I want to thank you for coming along with us wherever you're listening throughout the fruited plains of the great nation, the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known, and that is America. Welcome to the C.L. Bryant Show. I am C.L. Bryant. You folks in Wilmington, North Carolina, I want to thank you for being there, along with you listeners in southern Arkansas and East Texas. Thank you for being there tonight and coming along with us on this journey. Stay with us throughout the entire show. Coming up will be Secret Agent Man, former Secret Service, United States Secret Service man Dan Bongino at the 6:40 hour. We'll take your phone calls after the 6 o'clock hour. That number is 320-5335.
That's it, yeah.
230-5335. I don't know what happened.
Disregard the other number that came out there.
Just disregard that.
Yeah, disregard it.
230-5335.
No.
320-320-5335, 318-320-5335 is the number to call. And, folks, I'll give it out again. I'll give it out again with more clarity a little bit later on, but 318-320-5335, 318-320-5335 is the number to call. Now, folks, listen. I don't know where you live in the country because, of course, we stream live throughout the nation, of course, and you can download the free C.L. Bryant Show app onto your iPhone or Android device. Go to our website, TheCLBryantShow is how you can find out how to listen to us anywhere in the world. But wherever you're listening to the program, there is a problem that all of us have in common, and there is something that we're going to have to do about it. Our world, of course, has always been a violent place. It seems as though we're more aware of it in these times and in these days than we have been in times past. I guess it is because of the multimedia type of world that we live in. Here in Louisiana, where our show is domiciled, and my home state, we find that one in three inmates return to prison. Most of those are nonviolent, so something has to be done about that. But what about the violent criminals that are being released? In California, they're being released wholesale. And so who knows where they go from there? Many times they stay right there in California, which is just fine. Now, Attorney General Jeff Sessions has cracked down on any of those who are illegal and committing any types of crime. MS-13 is growing in this country, which is a violent gang from down in Guatemala. They're growing very rapidly here. And I thank goodness that the administration that we have now has taken a very serious look at how to curb their activities by rounding them up and sending them out of here. And hopefully with the crackdown that we have coming on the border, they won't return as they have after being deported in other circumstances under other administrations. But now here's what I'm getting to. We have seen all types of things on Facebook, on the web, from beatings to rapes to murders, all on Facebook, all on the internet. It's all there. And, of course, if you haven't heard, the murderer, the Facebook murderer as he had been called, who was definitely facing a jail sentence, death sentence, what have you, the coward killed himself today in Erie, PA, Erie County, Pennsylvania. He killed himself. Gone through a McDonald's, had ordered 20 McNuggets and a large order of fries. Was spotted by one of the workers there in the McDonald's, told him he had to wait on the fries. In the meantime, they was calling the cops. Brought him the McNuggets. This has happened many times. Doesn't seem out of the ordinary at McDonald's. It happens like this. Brought him the McNuggets, told him he'd had to wait on the fries. In the meantime, he recognized him, went in, called the cops. He said that he wasn't going to wait any longer. Drove off, didn't speed off, drove off. There was a short chase. Cops get out of their cars, approached his car, still in the Ford Fusion, the white Ford Fusion. To this moment, I'll never know how he could have evaded them for 48 hours, but he did. He shot himself in the head. End of story, but is it? I don't think so. I don't think this is the end of that story. Because what is happening, in fact, his last meal cost him $5.25. Last meal, large chicken nuggets, order of fries, McDonald's. Cost him $5.25 after he had cost a family one of their loved ones. There's a sickness in this country. There's a sickness, and the sickness is you have Looney Tunes on the internet who now know that by doing outrageous things, they can become infamous. And there are some people who are just that twisted and sick who would prefer to be infamous rather than not ever being noticed at all in this life. This man, I won't mention his name, I mentioned him one time last night, killed Robert Godwin, 74-year-old, father of 10, grandfather to 14. Killed him, as you know now, on Easter Sunday while he was leaving his Easter meal and picking up a few cans. Old people do that sometimes just to get a little extra change. Folks, I'm going to tell you about this sickness that is brewing in this country, and I want you to stay tuned later on. Dan Bongino will be my special guest after the 6:30 hour. I'm CL. Be right back. I am telling you that crime is becoming fashionable. We're going to talk a little bit about more about that with Dan Bongino later on in the show. Secret agent, Secret Service man, United States Secret Service, Dan Bongino. Going to talk about him, about Pence and the president. Are they safe? Are they truly safe? Because there have been some breakdowns even in the security of the two executive governmental figures in our country that really, I don't know how we can even tolerate that. Can we even be happy with some of the security breaches that have happened with our president? Now, the president's over in South Korea, not really crazy about that either. Paul Ryan is the default person if anything happens to Pence. So we're going to talk about that with Dan Bongino a little bit later on in the show. Now, I was saying to you that the cowardly killer of 74-year-old Robert Godwin killed himself. Last meal cost him $5.25. But what he cost that family, and I have to commend them because they were so gracious in their attitude before they learned that he had killed himself, in forgiving him. Quite frankly, I don't know what I would have done. I know what I would like to have done. I would like to be more like them because they were a lot like Jesus would have been, in my opinion. I think I'm more like James and John, the sons of thunder, as far as that's concerned. Maybe Peter. I don't know if I could have been as forgiving in that situation. Forgiving, yes. Forgiving, yes. Forgiving. But justice, I do believe, must be served. I wish that this idiot had killed himself before he killed Robert Godwin. And listen, doesn't it make any sense? Doesn't it make sense? If you are tired of living, and I'm not advocating anybody commit suicide, but why do what this man did when you're going to do what you did to remedy your mental problem anyway? So crime is on the rise. And the internet, with all of its exposure, worldwide exposure, and with all of the lonely people, Jay, you got to find that song, Eleanor Rigby. You got to find that one, because that is one of the problems that is going on in this country right now. You have people who have become couch potatoes. Their four walls is their entertainment, with a screen in front of them that they hold on their lap or in the palm of their hand, or they sit behind a desk and look at, and they scroll through the various things that are going on in the world while they sit and watch it happen. And so many people are saying to themselves, hey, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something that's going to get me some attention. And one of the evil things that can occur, that very well can occur, is that you get someone who has no outlook on life, no God consciousness, and understand that he has no moral compass. And he decides that because his girlfriend breaks up with him, he can't live any longer. That's where we're headed. That's where we are. That is what we are beginning to spawn in our homes. Do you know where your child is? There was once a time in this country when you told the kids to go out and play, and that's what they did. Wanted to go outside, being inside was a punishment. No longer, not now that we have the screen. We have Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, or whatever it's called. We have that. And that is far more interesting than building a fort or playing softball or working up a sweat doing something outside. Fresh air and sunshine is no longer appealing, but coffee houses that have Wi-Fi is now where we exercise not the body, but fill the mind with whatever is on the net. That is what led to, I think, this man doing what he did. And folks, have you given any thought to what he had to have done to put that on Facebook, to put the murder of this 74-year-old man on Facebook? He would have had to stand there with his device in his hand purposely and shoot this man dead. Who does that? Somebody that is absolutely lost and twisted. But we're breeding them. We're breeding them in droves, and I am telling you, if you look around in your home, if you visit your brothers, your sisters, your neighbors, your cousins, your uncles, your aunts, you may just see the spawning process going on as you speak. There is something going on in the American psyche out there. There is something very unhealthy that is happening, and it is manifesting itself. It is beginning to emerge in ways that are absolutely appalling. But we can do it. We can turn it around if we pay attention to what's going on. I'm very proud to see that the president is doing what he's doing as far as talking about Buy American, Hire American. But he's meeting with resistance to that. When I come back, I want to talk to you about the strength, the power of George Soros. The power of George Soros and his money. Look closely. You'll see it for yourself. I'm going to try to point it out to you when I return. I'm CL. Don't go anywhere. You may think that George Soros's money is just used to combat the forces of conservatism and republicanism in this country. If you think that, you would be absolutely wrong. You see, he is a social engineer. George Soros is 84, 86 years old now. George Soros, multi-billionaire who uses his money to shape the world that he lives in by buying people, buying causes, and using them as battering rams to shape his world, as hammers and sledges to shape his world. George Soros, give you an example of what I'm talking about. Dianne Feinstein, the darling of California, in front of a crowd in San Francisco, although, hey, let me tell you, I've spoken in San Francisco on several occasions. They're a pretty tough crowd anyway. But Dianne Feinstein is their darling. I never have been. They were chanting, "Not tough enough, not tough enough." Who is she not tough enough on? Donald Trump. They're not happy with her because they think that she should use her powers to drive Trump from office. So she's not tough enough. Also, when you look at Maine, where Bernie Sanders and the new DNC chair, Tom Perez, showed up today or yesterday, they were traveling together. They're traveling together throughout the country trying to bring unity back to the Democrat Party. Hey, the new DNC chairman was booed. Bernie was cheered. Bernie the socialist was cheered. The new DNC chairman, Tom Perez, was booed. Message. There's a message here. These people in the crowd are people who are, you may think I'm crazy. Think on. But these people are influenced by a social engineering. You see, George Soros, if he is to engineer our society in his image, or in the image that he thinks it should be shaped, he then has to control both parties. Yes, the Republican Party has his greatest enemies in it, but he also has to control the narrative of the Democrat Party. You saw it right here in the Jewel Cities as far as elections were concerned just about a year ago. Yeah, you saw it here. And it's happening in every little hamlet and molehill and what have you throughout this country. Hey, you're worth billions of dollars. I mean, you just give some people just a little bit of it, and they can make things turn. They'll actually sell their core values out. I'd rather go to Grand Cane and rock on my porch in the country instead of being the slave of someone. Behind this microphone, folks, and I thank God for every one of the sponsors that I have. I thank God for them. But I want to tell you something. My words are my own. Yes, I am a senior fellow with Freedom Works in Washington, D.C., but the operative two words in our title, Freedom Works, is just that. Freedom Works. I could not be a part of anything that did not agree with my personal agenda. Left the NAACP because just didn't matter. Hey, I didn't leave them. I really didn't. Let me retract that. I didn't leave the NAACP. I woke up and realized that they left me. Or actually, I never understood, at this point in my life, I never understood why I couldn't see through all of that. But I was young. President, two-term president. I was young. Didn't come to conservatism in my home. I grew up in a Kennedy Democrat home, a Roosevelt Kennedy type Democrat home back in those days, where what my parents were would be a conservative home today. Definitely right leaning. My dad was hawkish. He was World War II veteran. Truman kind of guy, you know. But what I'm saying is this. You have lots of money, and you're going to see what happens with this money tonight in Georgia. There's a race going on in Georgia. Newt Gingrich's old seat, Tom Price's old seat. Race going on in Georgia from an upstart, true upstart, has never done anything. He hasn't done anything. He hasn't had a business. He hasn't been in the military. He's been a documentarian. Well, I'm a documentarian, but I've run my own business. I've had 3 churches, pastored 3 churches across the country. Oh, yeah, married. Over 42 years. That's a job in its own. Had several businesses in my life, raised 4 children, 11 grandchildren. Didn't raise all the grandchildren, but you know what I'm saying. There are some tallies that I have on my sheet that I can point to as far as accomplishments are concerned. I just told you, 2-term president, NAACP, Garland, Texas, sued GISD. They're in Garland, Texas. Magnet schools over there right now was settled on my watch, came about after I left. Yeah. But this guy running for the office of Newt Gingrich, Democrat hadn't had that office in decades. George Soros money, there's 8 million, I think it's 12 million now, $12 million for a congressional seat? No. Maybe $500,000, $500,000 to run that type of campaign. Maybe $1 million. 12 million? The Dems want it bad. I think Soros wants it even worse. I'll be back after the top of the hour.
Here comes old Rose, she's looking mighty fine. Here comes Hot Nancy, she's stepping right on time.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
CL back on this great American Tuesday here in the jewel cities of the Architects, Shreveport and Bossier City, where we are streaming live from the flagship station of KEEL 710 and 101.7 on your FM dial. And all of you folks in Wilmington, North Carolina, glad that we're up there with you. And I know we have faithful listeners right over there in East Texas and in southern Arkansas that's hearing the show as well. And wherever you live in this great land, I'm sure you have one of those high noon moments coming up, if not now, real soon in the election process, that you're going to have to pay attention to. On the line with me now is someone who has taken on the task of facing down those in this state in particular who have, in fact, not paid close attention to the voters of this state. We're sending back to office on the 29th of this month. We're sending someone back to the office in District 8, that's Bossier, who has the right stuff to be a statesman in the state of Louisiana. Joining me now is that person, and Raymond Cruz. Raymond, thank you so much for being there. How are you, man?
Oh, CL, it's a pleasure to be back on the air. Love talking to you and Jay, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, man, tell us how it's going. How's it shaping up? How's it looking? How goes the fight?
Well, I tell you, I think it looks fantastic. The volunteers are just absolutely enthusiastic. There's a groundswell of support here that's just, I mean, you can feel it. There's energy and excitement about putting another conservative back down there in Baton Rouge.
And there is no George Soros money in your campaign, I don't believe.
Not a penny.
And what I really like about your campaign, Raymond, and folks, listen, you should love this too. You should love this too. It is grassroots. Did you hear the word volunteer? That's what he said. These people have a heart for the statesman candidate that they are wanting you to go out on the 29th, April, and vote for. Raymond, tell everybody, I have asked you this 100 times, but there just might be 100 people who might have joined us since the last time we talked that didn't hear you say it. Why do you want this office?
Well, because I want to represent the people. I have been watching from the outside just as a voter for years, and I've seen people are expressing their desire to have a conservative in office. And, you know, sometimes we're just shocked that we're not getting what we want. And it's just been a calling of mine to participate in that and be a part of that and represent the views and the wants and desires here of District 8.
Now, Raymond, you have flown B-52s in the military. You are a pilot. I see that F-35, man. That thing looks really sleek. Give us your personal opinion on just how dynamic and how exciting that possibly is.
Oh, wow. You know, any kind of a craft like that, to be able to extract that kind of force against the enemy is just fantastic. It'd be, of course, fantastic to have another weapon system like that here at Barksdale Air Force Base. We all know how important this base is, not only to our defense, but to our economy here. And like I said before, you get some true patriots, some true great citizens when you get some military members in your community.
Absolutely, you do. Now, there was a question that you had answered for us, but again, for the sake of those who, radio is a strange thing. Some people stay with us the whole 2 hours. Some people come and go. They may have missed some of the things that you were saying. Camp Minden is something that's on the hearts and minds of everyone. How does Raymond Cruz feel about it?
Well, you know, I just heard a commercial on your show about that. And, you know, obviously the center has proved itself. Yeah, it's been safe. And I'm not going to deny that at all. But the deal is there was a contract with the citizens. And from everything I'm hearing, the citizens don't want it there anymore. And we've got to listen to the people that make up the district. And it's just hard for me to believe that so many people think you can just do what you want. You can't. The citizens are who we're here to represent.
Absolutely. And you know what, Raymond, one of the things that is really troubling in that Georgia election that's going on tonight is that the person running in the district does not live in the district. He is running because he thinks he can win that seat. A statesman, and Raymond, I have to tell people in full disclosure, I really believe that this man is that. I believe they come from among the people. They have what he just said in his heart toward the people, and that is the desire to represent the wishes of his constituents. And Raymond, I certainly wish you well on that. When can we go vote? Tell us where to tell us about the turnout. Tell us what we ought to do.
Well, I tell you what, early voting continues on at the Benton Courthouse up through Saturday, and then we have a week off, and then the actual election date is the 29th. It's all day, and the big thing is to realize that this is the opportunity to speak for the citizen. You know, this is the opportunity, the big thing. And turnout's typically low in a special election already, but now this is a runoff, so it'll probably be even lower. But we really want those people to get energized, get out there, vote, and vote conservative.
You know what you need to do now, folks? Just make it happen. Raymond Cruz, I want to thank you, Ray, for being on with me. God bless you. God bless your family. Tell your mom and dad I said, hey, they're great people.
I appreciate that, CL. Thanks again, as always.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Yeah, folks, on the 29th. On the 29th, you know what you need to do. You need to go do your civic duty as a citizen. Large, small, in-between elections, they all speak to the importance of your citizenship. That is a responsibility. And maybe that is something that's being lost in translation as far as what's going on in this country that you don't like. You don't vote. But, of course, we do complain. And I'm not the first to say it, won't be the last, and it won't be the last time I say it. It is your responsibility as a citizen to go and vote. So make it up in your mind to go and vote for someone who has your core values and wants to represent your wishes in your community. That's statesmanship. And I have to tell you as well, folks, that is one of the problems throughout this nation. It has been a problem throughout this nation. We call ourselves, we many times think that we're raging against the machine when we go and vote our presidential ticket or senatorial seat to send them to Washington, D.C., and we do. But let me tell you, raging against the machine begins when you're backing out of your driveway, headed to your voting precinct. And the seeds of that began in your kitchen tables, in your dens, wherever you have discussions, or you think about your little corner of the world. How do you affect it? How do you better it? Vote. April 29th. You folks in Bossier, you hear me. I'm CL. We'll be back. CL, back with you on this Tuesday here in the jewel cities of the Arctic, streaming nationwide throughout the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known. 318-320-5335, 318-320-5335 is the number to call if you want to talk to me. I believe we'll take a few phone calls now before Dan Bongino comes on. Dan will be coming on after the bottom of the hour. He'll be coming on after the bottom of the hour. Now, I am seeing all around this nation. I'm seeing all around this nation people who are, they're walking on eggshells. They're scared of what may happen tomorrow. They're kind of afraid of what's going to happen tomorrow. And I am telling you that there are people who are really scared of Little Kim. Yeah, they're in North Korea. They're really scared of him. They're scared of Little Kim because he's crazy. But the fact of the matter is, it would be suicide for him to try to attack us. But as we have seen in this Facebook killer, won't call his name, the one who snuffed himself today. I noticed he didn't videotape that.
Got Bill if you want.
I noticed he didn't tape that. He didn't tape him snuffing himself. I guess I don't know if he could do that. But Little Kim wouldn't mind taking out maybe one of the Hawaiian Islands, knowing that it would be suicide if he did. That's what crazy people do. Bill, thank you for listening. Thank you for calling. What's on your mind, brother?
Hey, Seal, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. What's up, man?
Well, there's so much stuff, CL, that I just quit thinking of everything because my blood pressure won't
It does sort of drive the blood pressure up, doesn't it, man?
I tell you what's wrong with everything. You know, I'm just a country boy, God-given sense.
Bless your heart. Me too.
Our judicial system is failing us. Look, it's what's taking place in Arkansas right now.
Mm-hmm.
They got 8 murders that's supposed to be executed. Supposed to be put to death.
Yeah.
But the crime and the Supreme Court is overturning the execution, and all that doing is taking money away from the taxpayers of Arkansas. I do not understand that. CL, will you please explain that to me?
Well, Bill, you know what? You're absolutely right about that. And this is the question that we have to ask ourselves, Bill. Do we want to feed a convicted? I'm talking about somebody now who is convicted of a heinous crime and deserves to be put to death according to our laws. They're not going to live out in the general population ever again. They're going to be in prison the rest of their life.
See,
why feed them?
That is what I don't understand. If you, through DNA, prove wickedness and the system knows that you did it, just throw a rope over a tree and let them hang them. I'll put them from a front squad like the old days. I'm from the old school.
You watch westerns too, don't you? You watch westerns too, don't you, Bill?
That's what they did my Father's Day.
I do too. I watch westerns too, Bill. And I tell you something. About watching westerns, Bill. Justice was quick and swift back then. Sometimes they got it wrong, but most of the times it was quick and it was swift, and people didn't have to worry because they knew that it was quick and swift.
I have lived almost 7 generations on this earth, CL.
Bless your heart.
68 years old next month.
Bless your heart.
And I tell you the truth, I cannot believe what has happened to men and women this country. I am just...
It's amazing.
I am... You know what my favorite song is? By Pink Floyd, Completely Numb. That's why I am. I'm completely numb.
Yeah. Yeah. Bill, I want to thank you so much for listening. Thank you for calling, brother. Always good to hear from you.
Okay. Have a good one, CL.
You too.
God bless you.
God bless you. You know what, folks? Hey, call me Rush has already gotten this, and I've tried to get him on the show. He's very rare. He's sort of like Robert De Niro. Well, he's not. Nothing's like Robert De Niro politically, but he's one of those animals that's very rare sighting. You don't see him often anywhere. And I've tried to get him on the show and so forth, but he has this saying, or has had this saying for years. He's to the right of Attila the Hun. When it comes to people who have committed heinous crimes, I am too. Especially when we know you did it. We know you did it. There's no sense in us feeding you anymore, in prison or otherwise. We know you did it. I believe, folks, now this is me, 3205335, and I know that there are some people who absolutely disagree with the death penalty. Absolutely disagree with the death penalty. But I don't. 318-320-5335. I believe that there comes a time in human existence when a person forfeits his right or her right, because, quite frankly, there are some rough customer women coming up too. We're spawning them. But I believe they forfeit their right to live among us. And if they have forfeited their right to live among us, then they have forfeited their right for us to feed them and give them a place to stay. Now, we can go back and debate what Scripture has to say about it in the Old and then over in the New Testament, the law and grace and all of that. But I got to tell you something. One of the reasons why the punishments were so harsh in the Old Testament, and even I'll show you instances in the New Testament, why they were so harsh, is because they were deterrents. At this point in time, what has happened is that we have very few deterrents to bad behavior. Even in the school system. Of course, I'm not talking about executing kids or anything. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong there. Although some teachers might, but anyway, but if there's no deterrent, if there's nothing that is just as equally harsh as a deterrent to your abhorrent behavior, then what's to stop the bad behavior? Nothing. In my day, there were no timeouts, and you had kinder and gentler children. I'm CL. We'll be right back.
Born, the nurses all gathered round, and they gazed in wide wonder at the joy they had found. The head nurse spoke up.
There is a spirit of abuse of just about everything that goes on in our nation today. H-1B is one of them. That is a visa program that allows skilled workers or supposed skilled workers from other nations to come to the United States and work. Places like Silicon Valley and other places. But it is being abused. And today the president made steps to put an end to the abuse of that. Nearly 200,000 people in this past year applied for H-1B visa. There's only 85,000 slots that are available. What some corporations had been using it for was to bring in labor, not necessarily skilled labor, but to bring in labor and pay them less money, thus freezing out, in many cases, the American worker. There are some jobs that companies were saying that they can't find Americans to do. Now, I don't live in a cave. I know that there are some lazy Americans, some. But there are some Americans who are frozen out because of programs like this. I do know that in some areas of our country, when certain job opportunities come up, that area does not have the job pool or the labor pool to fill the jobs that are coming in. Jane and I had a business down in Grand Cane just a few years ago when my wife became ill. Thank God she's well on the way to recovery and cancer-free. Thank God for that. But when she was diagnosed, we had to let the business go. But one of the things that kept our business really booming were people coming in, especially the execs who came in when the Haynesville Shell was going. And they stayed at we had a bed and breakfast down there. Cook Hill, by the way, it's a great place. Cook Hill, now I know you guys are listening. I know a lot of you are listening. I'm giving you a plug. It's still there. It's still going. We had it as a business. Did very well we were there for 7 years. Did very well. It's still there. Cook Hill Bed and Breakfast. You can find it on the web. Cook Hill Bed and Breakfast. Keith Wanamaker is who you want to talk to. Keith Wanamaker down there in Grand Cane. It's a wonderful place. Wonderful place to go and spend some time. And Keith will prepare you breakfast. He'll do it. He certainly will. It was a Civil War field hospital at one time. Jane and I had that place for 7 years. Now, what am I saying? When Haynesville, rabbit trails, I go off on them sometimes. I know I do, but I'm back now. So many times when they were looking for people to fill the jobs for Haynesville Shale, they couldn't find them in the immediate DeSoto Parish area. There were people coming from Kentucky, all around the South, and Arkansas, all around the South, Texas for sure, to fill jobs that should have been able to have been filled by the citizenry there in DeSoto Parish, but they were not. I know that those types of situations do exist. But when we're talking about highly skilled jobs, like the ones that are being filled by those supposedly skilled workers coming in with the H-1B visas, I am suspicious of that, just as the president is suspicious of it. And I think when we're talking about buy American, hire American, I think that should always be the first consideration. And if you can't, okay, do what you have to do. But the first priority, and that's all we're saying when we're talking about buy American, hire American, we're talking about the first priority for employment should be the American worker, the American skilled or unskilled laborer. That's the way it is in Canada. One of my daughters and her husband were missionaries in Canada. And now he was going to pastor a church. She, the family having to be duly employed because they have the children and so forth, she was going to have to get a job. But she couldn't unless somebody in Canada actually vouched for her to get the job, because you don't give a job to someone who's not Canadian first. And that's the same way it is in Brazil. I've done missionary work in Brazil. And down there, it is almost a code of ethic. Brazilians first. And folks, if we have any common sense, that's the way it should be anywhere. And of course, I've had my experience with hiring family. And maybe you have too. But if they're qualified and can actually do the job without causing drama, I'd probably hire family first. Hey, the president, it works for the president. Works for the president. But you have to have control on that if you're going to hire family. But what I'm saying is the American family should be the very first consideration for any employer out there. Coming up in the next segment is going to be my good buddy, Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino is the host of his own show, Renegade Republican. That's what he is. Dan's a renegade anyway. Former Secret Service agent, and served his nation, served as president, two of them, proudly. We're going to talk to him when we return. I'm CL. Don't go anywhere.
You remember back in 1966. Country Jesus, hillbilly blues, that's where I learned my lick. Up from coast to coast and line to line to every county there. I'm talking about that outlaw X's cutting through the air. Anywhere, y'all, everywhere, y'all. I heard it on the X.
CL, back with you on this Tuesday, broadcasting from the jeweled cities of the Architecture Report and Bossier as we stream nationwide throughout the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known, and that is America. All you folks in Wilmington, North Carolina at WLTT 1180 there in Wilmington, and you folks in Southern Arkansas and East Texas, want to thank you for coming along as well. Joining me now is a friend of the show, friend of mine, a guy I greatly respect. He is the renegade Republican, former Secret Service agent himself, Dan Bongino. Welcome back to CL Bryant Show. How are you, brother?
Hey, good to be here. How are you tonight?
I'm doing fantastically well, Dan. And again, I get a chance to talk with you. Man, you are hard. I'm telling you, you're hard to get a hold of. But I see you everywhere. Fox and Friends, folks, you can see him on Fox and Friends almost any morning you tune in. He's going to bring in Dan. And that's a great thing. But you can also tune in. He's the host of his own show, Renegade Republican. Tell us about the Renegade Republican first, Dan. How do we get a hold of you there?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I started this podcast a couple years ago. You know, it's largely economics based. It's called the Renegade Republican. I tackle issues of the day, and it's been doing great. Right now, I think we're the third largest conservative podcast in the country. So, yeah, we're doing great, man. And
that is great.
You know, I saw you call me today. You're in my phone book, and I said C.L. Bryant. I said I got to pick that up. You can't turn down C.L. Bryant.
Thank you so
C.L.
much.
calls you. You better pick up the darn phone.
Thank you so much for that, Dan. Now, Dan Bongino, for you folks who don't know, is top-ranked Secret Service agent. He decided to walk away from it all, and he wrote the book Life Inside the Bubble. You want to get that, Life Inside the Bubble. Dan, give us an idea, because I want to talk to you about Secret Service here for a few minutes. Why did you walk away?
Well, CL, at the time, you know, Barack Obama was 2 years into his presidency, and I saw what was going on from the inside. I mean, they were using government as, I like to use this analogy, it was like a shiny new toy for them.
Yeah.
They didn't seem to have any limits to anything they were going to do. It was almost out of an ignorance, like, look, we're in charge. You know, if you or I were anointed like a monarch tomorrow, that's what it felt like being around the White House. I saw the country falling apart at the time, and you know, candidly, I didn't want to be a part of it. I just didn't, and I thought the only noble thing to do at that point was to leave and walk away. And
a lot of us back in the time. In fact, I met you back around that time, right after you had walked out of that position, and for good reason. A lot of us walked away from various positions that we were in because we had become disillusioned with what was going on in the country at this point in time. And Dan, you have been an outspoken champion of American values, the fiscal conservatism around this nation, and evidently you're doing a fantastic job with Renegade Republican. But now I'm seeing something here as far as seemingly a breakdown in the Secret Service itself with the jumping over the fence. And I heard you say this. When asked, did you think that the President Trump was safe? And at the time, this has been about a month ago now, it was on Fox. You said you didn't feel as though he was safe. Why would you say that? Why did you say that?
Well, you know, he's not safe in the White House. He's not, and it gives me no pleasure in saying that. I said it because Secret Service upper-level management, I'm talking about the hierarchy and headquarters, not the field office supervisors, they're very sclerotic, CL. They're almost like cement. They're not moldable and plastic to the changing, evolving threats. The very real threat to the White House right now, from my experience as a Secret Service agent, is an organized 20 to 30-man terrorist assault team. Now, laugh that off if you want, and some of you may be listening, and fair enough, you may say, well, why even mention that? Why give the bad guys any ideas? See how the bad guys already have these ideas. They wrote a darn movie about it called Olympus Has Fallen.
Right.
Okay? This isn't an idea I put in anybody's head. The idea's out there. My point is that the management is not adjusting to the threat. They're still prepared for the single gunman John Hinckley type.
Yeah.
And I'm really worried that they're not going to fix the problem.
And I certainly hope that they pay heed to what you are saying, because as I look at our vice president over in South Korea right now, staring down the North Koreans as he looks basically across the street at South Korea in that demilitarized zone, you have to wonder, how do they prepare to take a head of state out of the country? Dan, I know you can't, you're not going to give away, the trade secrets or anything, but that must be a mammoth operation. That must be a mammoth job.
Well, you got the right guy on the phone, because I did an advance in South Korea with President Bush when he was in office. And, it's very complicated overseas, because the Secret Service, contrary to what, the movies portray them as, you have no law enforcement authority whatsoever in a foreign country. You're there armed as a Secret Service agent with the President of the United States in South Korea, strictly as a diplomatic courtesy on behalf of the South Koreans. You have nothing.
Wow.
You're nothing but a guy with a gun in a foreign country. You're not.
Wow.
You have no legal powers at all. So that's the first complication. But overseas like that, your big headaches are what I call the big six: the tactical threats, the medical emergencies, the chemical biological attacks, explosives, attacks from the sky, and fires and geologic type things like earthquakes. Those are the big six threats you have to mitigate. Doing it overseas where there's a language barrier, like when I did the advance in South Korea, oh my gosh, you're up all night. Not to mention you're on a time change and you can never sleep and you're grumpy the whole darn day. That's the real world, brother. That's the real world. You're grumpy the whole day because you're on a 11-hour time difference?
Yeah, 11-hour difference.
That is brutal.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's amazing, and that's something that you and I, you do, but the average American like myself, we never consider what you have just said. We think Secret Service in a foreign country carries with it some type of law enforcement authority, not realizing that you're a guy with a gun protecting your guy in the foreign country. Dan Bongino, we're on with the Renegade Republican. Stay with me for a few minutes after the break, Dan. We'll be right back with Dan Bongino when I return. CL, back with you on this Tuesday. And I want to thank all of you throughout the fruited plains of the greatest nation on the face of the earth for joining me here tonight, wherever you're listening to the show. Thank you so much for your tweets, your calls, and all of that, and the encouragement that I get from so many of you. On the line with me is friend and former Secret Service, United States Secret Service agent Dan Bongino, who is the host of his own podcast, The Renegade Republican. Dan, when we left, we were talking about Vice President Trump being in South Korea, and you were telling us that you have actually led that detail. You have actually been on that detail there in South Korea when President Bush was there. This is what really bothers me about it. And Paul Ryan. I didn't want to put Pence in a situation where we could have Paul Ryan as the default mechanism, Dan. That bothers me. And I've never really cared for Paul Ryan. I know, you speak for yourself on that. But didn't that make you feel a little bit uncomfortable sending Pence over there right now?
Well, the Secret Service, the South Koreans are really good at this. You know, I did the transportation advance over there, and they really have their act together. The South Koreans have a very sophisticated personal security operation. So, you know, it really doesn't. I don't blame you. Don't get me wrong. A little apprehension when our people travel overseas, especially during a thermonuclear crisis, is not unusual, and you're in no way out of bounds for bringing that up. But having worked with the South Koreans before, they're real pros. I'll tell you, in my experience, CL, doing overseas advance work, the two foreign security outfits I work with that were far and away some of the best I'd ever seen were in the Czech Republic and the South Korean. I think they're called the PSS over there. Mm-hmm. And it's Personal Security Service would be the American acronym. But they're tight. They got their act together. You know, they know what they're doing over there.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, especially coming from you. Now, finally, I want to get your take on what the president is saying, buy American, hire American, shooting down, or at least attempting to shoot down, the H-1B Visa Act. What's Dan Bongino's take on that?
Well, listen, I'm a big free marketeer when it comes to the movement of people and labor, but the program's been abused, CL, for a long time. I mean, the whole idea of the H-1B program was that if you have capable American technical workers in a technical field available to work a job, that as Americans, we should probably hire Americans first. I mean, is there anything controversial about that?
No.
And the problem is the program was being abused. I'm not a restrictionist on immigration and labor from foreign countries. But if we're going to have a program with the intent of hiring American technology field workers, then we should actually prioritize American technology field workers. And that's not what was happening, CL. I mean, the thing that happened with Disney down here, where they basically fired a group of people and had them train a bunch of other folks from outside the country to take their jobs.
Yeah.
You know, that was just a disgrace. The economics of it aside, it was just morally that shouldn't have happened in a great American company like that.
Dan, tell everyone how to get a hold of your book, how to get a hold of your thoughts, and how do they get into the Renegade Republican?
Hey, thanks, Phil. Yeah, I'm on Twitter at DBongino, and my book is Life Inside the Bubble. You want to go check it out. Some hoorah tales from my time in the Secret Service. Hope you enjoy it.
I'm sure they will. Life Inside the Bubble. And as you heard it from him, there are some tales that you want to hear directly from a United States Secret Service agent, Dan Bongino. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today. God bless and keep you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, brother. Take care.
I'm CL, and we've been on with Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent for both President Bush and President Obama. If you missed the first part of Dan's interview with me tonight, he said this, and you knew that this was going on when we elected the predecessor or the successor to President Bush. There was an air of we have a king going on when the Secret Service took over watching their guy at this point in time, which was Obama. And in the same time, the country fiscally, financially, was going down the tubes. Caused Dan Bongino to step away. Caused me to step away from some things as well. And one of the reasons why is because people were not hearing anymore what you were saying. In so many cases, they were blinded by this artificial light. Not the sun. They were blinded by this artificial light. That I'm telling you, in so many cases, has been hijacked by social engineers in that 8-year span of time. People have been blinded by the light that it actually ruined the sight that we did at one time have. Pretty much, at least we had some vision at one time in this country. We could see something that wasn't right coming. But because of the brilliant light that was shown around the incoming successor to George W. Bush, it blinded many Americans. It blinded Americans to what was accurate as far as what could ruin our nation and bring us to where we are at this point in time if we stayed on that trail. And folks, I dare tell you that everything, most of the things, I won't say everything, but most of the things that we were saying as grassroots people back 8 years ago about where America would go if we stayed on the trail we were following, it has come about. We're trillions of dollars more in debt. Our educational system is in shambles. We're facing more debt. You are for sure if you have Obamacare. Your premiums are going to go rampant. It's exactly what was told would happen if we stayed on that trail. We can fix it if we will. I'll be back.
We don't have no plastic.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
C.L. Bryant back on this Tuesday. I got a call. I believe the name was Michaela from a lady, and she was asking about the Supreme Court blocking the executions there in Arkansas, and how is that possible that they did that? What happened is that they upheld a lower court ruling, and the answer to the second part of your question is it not cheaper or less expensive to just keep them in jail for the lifetime instead of going through all the appeals process that we send them through in order to reach the same conclusion that they deserve to be in jail? There was more to the question, but that's the question in a nutshell. This is what has happened. You have activist judges who actually usurp the authority of the citizenry in the community. But now, again, it's convoluted because you do have the right to that due process. And that appeals process is a part of due process. There does need to be an overhaul, not only of the healthcare system. There need to be an overhaul of the justice system. One of the things that Dan Bongino was saying about the Secret Service that does apply to just about every other thing that we're looking at in our country today is that we have not adjusted to the time that we're living in at this point in time in the Secret Service. Dan was saying it's not adjusted to the threat that is facing an American president in today's times. I don't believe we're facing up to the task, or that we're ready for the task that's facing up to us in the criminal justice system at this point in time, especially with all the heinous stuff, the heinous crimes that are going on. You have child crimes. I'm going to get Amy Fletcher in here to talk to you about Justin's Law here real soon, perhaps next week. There are heinous crimes that are being committed. There's trafficking that's being. How do you deal with someone who you catch trafficking? I read about, actually, it was a ring of preachers in Ohio. I have to get my wife to show me that again. A ring of preachers in, I believe it was Ohio. I'm not really sure. I want to say Ohio. That was actually trafficking in young girls. What do you do with them? I want to know. I want to know, what do you do with that level of betrayal? As far as the ruining and disassembling, dismantling of a child's life, a young lady's life, a young girl's life is concerned, they did it. They're just as rabid dog as this rabid dog who killed the 74-year-old man, except they have killed so much of the future outlook of children who trust them. What do you do with them? What do you do with people who take advantage of the elderly and abuse them? Are we ready to go through the appeals process with each and every one of them who has been duly found guilty of your crime? I know that it's automatic with the death penalty, and maybe it should, and rightly so. You know, if you're gonna take a person's life, let's make very, very doggone sure that we want to kill them. But I don't think it should take so long. So there has to be something that we can alter, that we must address in order to get ready for the new criminal that we're placing in an old criminal justice system. Yeah, we have to get ready for the new criminal in this new society that we're going to have to place now in an old criminal justice system. And many times these criminals today already know how to game that system. Yeah. And you have activist judges all around the country who work in tandem with unscrupulous attorneys in so many cases. And folks, I'm not one of those who thinks that all attorneys are bad guys. I have many friends who are attorneys who are good guys, very good guys. But we do have, just like in any profession, unscrupulous people in the professions. I mentioned the preachers who had ruined those young girls. So they're everywhere. It's everywhere. But we have to be prepared, and we have to ask ourselves the question, what are we going to do about it? I'll be back. I made contact with David Alinsky's frontman today, Ralph Benko. Made contact with him. I am preparing for David Alinsky to come on with me either deep late in the week or early in the following week. To all of you who are listening to me in Pennsylvania, I'll be coming to Philadelphia over the weekend. I'll be in Philadelphia, PA over the weekend. I'll be there with some of your dignitaries. I'll tell you more about it on tomorrow. Folks, as a conservative, I want to preserve the core values of our nation so that they continue to work the way they have proven to work if executed properly for everyone. I want to preserve that. And that's what conservatism basically is preserving the tenets of the founding fathers. Not the and people get this all twisted. There are things written as far as the operation of the way the citizenry should operate, the way the nation should operate from its founding that absolutely works if it is executed properly by a free citizenry. A free citizenry. If we execute the way the country was designed to operate by a free citizenry, it works perfectly as far as you as an individual pursuing your life, your liberty, and your happiness. But then we do forget, though, and this is where I'm leading to with this, that outside of that framework, things do change. And one of those things are the methods that people use to subvert the proper execution of our nation's laws. We see it coming, but many times because we're so busy trying to maintain the way it should work, we forget that there are people who are just as adept at being serpentine, snakish, devilish, if you will, in subverting it. And unfortunately, we have not been as attuned to adjusting to their operation of subverting as we should be in preserving it. Which leads us to people like Saul Alinsky being as popular with Rules for Radicals as he was, and people like George Soros, who know that in a society like ours, you can actually be a social engineer because of the Nancy Pelosi's, because of the Harry Reids, Congressional Black Caucus, because of people like that. Bernie Sanders. You can actually become a social engineer because there's the haves and the have-nots, and the manipulation goes on in what is known as class warfare. The middle class becomes something that is a battleground which begins to disappear because of the dividing and conquering that's going on. Yeah, it begins to disappear, and all of a sudden you have people who are plainly preaching, teaching class and race warfare. In a country like America, you can't have basically racial warfare in China, but you definitely have class warfare. China's so homogenous and monolithic. You have strong racial identity as Chinese, but you have differences in the classes. Same way in India. You have difference in the classes of people. Here in America, you can actually wage, and it's almost even more diabolical here because of what I'm about to tell you. You can actually wage both class and race warfare here, along with religion and everything else warfare that can go on here in this country. Yeah. And of course, the mass, the size of this nation lends itself, and all of the various types of people who live in various parts of the country. It's a very unique situation if you don't follow the blueprint for the nation's success if operated properly in every state. And keep this in mind. This is the genius of America. You choose the state that you live in. You choose that state, and there's reasons why you should have chose it. Not just being born there, because you can move. I'll talk more about it during the week. I'll be back to close it out in just a minute.
If you had not have fallen, then I would not have found you. Angel flying too close to the ground. And I patched
Well, here we
up
are to close it out.
your
again today. And hey, folks, whatever state of mind you happen to be in, keep in mind that there's a flavor that you have that's all your own. Yeah, the state of whoever you are. That's the way you should look at the state that you live in. There's a flavor that it has. And it has that flavor because of the laws that govern it. That's why you should always study your own state. There's more to just life than being alive. It's knowing purpose. There's purpose, should be purpose why you live here and not there. And then you should exercise that purpose because you have knowledge of why you're here. I'm telling you, it will make you much better and more effective in the state you're in, wherever you are. Louisiana was that sportsman's paradise, Pelican State. New Jersey, the Garden State. Texas, Lone Star State. You know, Natural State up in Arkansas, what have you. Empire State in New York City, so forth. There's different states and flavors in each state. Not in each city. Each city, any municipality has its own flavoring, but they identify with the state they're in. And folks, that is the lack of that type of knowledge about why, where, and purpose. It is turned into almost a defiant ignorance that we must overcome, and we can. And folks, we must take the medicine that's necessary in order for us to be a better people. Again, because we're slipping, we're sliding. There's an abyss. And I know, the preacher in me always will tell you that Jesus saves. But I also believe that there's a time when you must try, at least try, to help yourself. You have to make a conscious decision to turn away from the things that cause the slide to begin with. You have to want to let it go. In America, it's time for us to let it go. The things that are causing us to be defiantly ignorant of who we are and our purpose. We are the light on a hill, the city on a hill. We are that. And I honestly believe, I truly believe this, that we as Americans are the salt of the earth. I want to thank God for bringing us to the close of yet another day, and I want to thank Him for our men and women in uniform around the globe who defend our right to speak our minds. And until I'm able to talk to you again, I'm CL, and may God bless and keep you all.
And to the families left behind, we'll stand by your side. And the bond